Well, good morning. I'm currently parked in front of the gym, about ready to go in for the morning. Um, I just wanted to go over what I call rule number 2, and that is this: treat every patient like you want to be treated, right? Always imagine yourself in their shoes and act accordingly. I was in the military for a very long time. Some of you probably know that. 25 years from 1992 to 2017. And in my early training, we learned very differently than they do now. This was in the mid 90s. The rules were a little more flexible than they are now. And one of the things that I most remember is this experience getting ready to see female patients as a provider for the first time. Okay, this is like late 90s. I had this instructor, Keith, wherever you are, God bless you. I never forgot this lesson ever. I had this instructor that before any of the male students were getting ready to go in and do annual exams and pap smears on women, he would bring in an exam table into the classroom, and he would make all of the male students change into a hospital gown, naked from the waist down, get up in the stirrups with the business end of everything facing the class, and just lay there for 5 minutes in front of the class, mixed company, obviously. And as you're sitting there, blushing red, thinking, oh, dear God, just make this end, he would ask you, now, how do you feel? And the answer was always, I feel vulnerable, and I feel open, and I feel embarrassed, and all of the things that women feel during a pelvic exam. And Keith would say, now, for the rest of your life, don't ever forget how this feels. And I never did. Keith, thank you for that lesson. The Navy, by the way, back then taught us everything live. So I did my first Foley on a lab partner. I did my first prostate exam on a lab partner. Jason, wherever you are, sorry, dude. We put in G-tubes in each other, everything that you were going to do to a patient, just about you did to a partner first. But this lesson stayed with me for the rest of my life. I have always tried to imagine, okay, what are the worst parts of what we're about to do for my client, and how can I make them not as bad? That's led me to do some things that were not controversial, and that hospitals and clinics have said, wow, that's a good idea. Those are things like, I went out to Walmart and I bought a bunch of baby wipe warmers, and I said, you know what, if I'm going to be putting cold goopy gel on somebody, I want at least warm, the sensitive skin kind of baby wipes to be able to get that off. A Kleenex that you hand somebody's not going to do it. In a clinic that I worked in, I love my Reno peeps, I miss you guys, I was able to get bathrobes, honest to goodness bathrobes that we laundered, rather than those stupid paper gowns that people hate. One of the more controversial things that I like to do, that's actually gotten me into a lot of heated arguments with fellow providers, is IUD insertions. When I do an IUD, I like to pre-medicate people. I give people pain medicine. If they need it, I give them anxiety medicine. It's not unusual for me to give somebody a couple of Percocet and a dose of Valium. Obviously, you have to make sure they have a ride home. And then I like to do a cervical block. And I, use topical first and then do a cervical block. And I have had patients, and we're talking, hundreds of IUDs later, I've had patients say, God, I didn't feel a thing. And I've never had anybody come back and say, I really regret taking medication for that. I really regret not being able to feel my cervix as you instrumented it first with a sound and then with an IUD inserter. And the reason I do that is because of Keith Burnham. Rewind the clock, it's 1998. That lesson that he taught me, I never forgot. And I think, gosh, if I was getting an IUD, what would I want done to me? And maybe I'm a wimp. I don't think so. I think that IUDs hurt. And I've rarely talked to a woman that said, God, that was a really enjoyable experience. And so I have a medication protocol that I use. Is that what everybody does? No. That's what I do. And I do it because of the lessons that I've learned about imagining if I were in my client's shoes. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.